The project started with back a few years, actually around 1960, when MnDOT built the highway. And they built it on land that they had an easement or a lease from the mining company. And part of that lease, there was an agreement that said, hey, if we ever want to mine this, the highway is going to have to be relocated. Somewhere along the way, the city of Virginia and the Virginia Public Utilities installed their sanitary sewer, water main, natural gas, and electrical utilities in that same corridor. Hence, they would have to follow that same requirement of the lease to the mining companies. Back a few years ago now, the mining company approached MnDOT and said, we're going to mine this in a few years, so you need to move the highways.
My residents would have been adversely affected by the water and the sewer that were normally provided for the city limits of Virginia. And the only way was to find an innovative way in order to continue to provide water and sewer, and that is to hang the water and sewer lines on the lower part of the bridge. And behind me up above, there's one line for the water, one line for the sewer. Hanging those utilities on the bridge was a challenge, and it took a lot of engineering innovation.
There were a number of innovative things on the project, actually, but the one that intrigues me and probably intrigues most everybody else the most is the hanging the utilities on the bridge. And so, starting with the fact that the water body that we're standing on the causeway in the middle of is the potable water supply for the city of Virginia. And so, as we were starting into the design of the pipes, we looked at how can we address that concern up front so we don't have problems with any leakage in the future. And so when it came to the sanitary sewer, and actually the water main followed close behind, HDPE, high density polyethylene, was the pipe of choice to use. And basically that allows us to weld those joints together, butt fuse, melt them basically together, so it ends up being one continuous pipe. And so the chances of having any leaks in any joints is virtually gone. The HDPE pipe being a flexible pipe, it's not very structural to hang on the bridge. And so if you can imagine between the hanging joists, it would sag in between those points. So installing it inside of a rigid pipe, steel casing pipe, we were able to provide that structural stability. The city in the future is going to have to maintain this. And so to hang off of the edge of the bridge and try to do some maintenance and do some things, it's doable, but it's very difficult, it's very expensive, and you have to hire somebody who's crazy enough to actually hang off the edge of the bridge to do it. So as part of the design, we designed it so that the city or the public utilities could grab a hold of the pipe on one end basically and pull the whole thing out of the casing pipe. So not as simple as I'm making it sound, but simpler than hanging off the bridge and cutting into it and trying to work 200 feet up in the air as opposed to working safely on the ground and pulling it out.
I think I'd like to add the ecological and the environmental issues that had to be overcome as a result of this being a mining area. All those things are very, very important, particularly in the state of Minnesota. And if you look around here, none of the wildlife has been adversely affected. None of the ecology has been compromised.
A project this complicated, there were a lot of players, and there was a lot of work by a lot of different people, but everybody at the end of the day had the same goal in mind and collaborated and got it done.